sorry about this, everybody. Perhaps something has pushed over the Gauri repeater, just like the elephants have pushed over this marula tree. Our technical team is rushing around, madly trying to fix it, and we'll be back with you as soon as we can.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to an ever so slightly delayed start to our sunset safari. But as our disclaimer claims, starting off with a bang, one of our lionesses finishing off what's left of her buffalo kill. Can you believe we are coming to you live from the middle of the African bush, and to be more specific, from Djuma, Arathusa and Cheetah Plains Game Reserves in the Sabi Sand in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. Top northeastern corner is exactly where we are. Not only are we live, we're also interactive, which means you can send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Mixing things up a little bit, my name is Jamie. I'll be taking you out on drive. VM is on camera. James will be out on bushwalk with Brian. And we've got so many things to show you this afternoon that I honestly didn't quite know where to start. But I thought we'd start off with our lioness on a kill on this beautifully warm, although I suppose anything feels warm in comparison to the weather we've had in the last few days. It's 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This beautifully warm winter's day. Our pregnant Nkuhuma lioness definitely making as much of the opportunity as to eat as she can. She's pretty much been eating the entire time that we've been watching her, since we found them yesterday afternoon, or at least since Warren found them yesterday afternoon, through this morning. And now she continues on. Now, I'm no expert, but I can count to 2. And I know there were 2 lionesses when I left them this morning. There is now but 1. As to where the other lioness has gone, sort of been quite cautious. I've had a good look around in the shade. I can't find her. I don't know if perhaps maybe she went through for a drink of some description. Oh, there's a vehicle there. That's a surprise. We're usually the first people out. They obviously wanted to come out a little bit earlier. Of course, sorry, you took me by surprise. Didn't know you guys were out. It's Texan I'm chatting to on the Game Drive channel. Copy that. I said to Texan that he took me by surprise, being out as early as he is. His response was, "Oh, I just wanted to be early like you guys." We do tend to go out a little bit before the rest of the game drives. And as our buffalo munches away, we do actually have a very special person on the back of the vehicle with us. Those of you with us for the Sunrise Safari are aware that it is the wonderful Kirsty McLennan Smith's birthday, so you'll all join me once again rousing happy birthday. We're taking Kirsty out on a drive. She's blinking owlishly at the outside world because, of course, she doesn't get to see it all that often. It's a lion, Kirst. It's a lion eating a buffalo. Take her out on a little bit of a game drive. Well, while we sit here and decide where we're going to go from now, let's head across to James so he can say his hellos.
On a Sunday afternoon, everyone, it is always best to consider the world from the position in which you find me now. A small piece of grass sticking from your mouth, observing the bright blue sky above, shaded by some silver cluster-leaf trees. Elephant. Hold that thought. My name's James. Brian's on camera. There seems to be an elephant around here. It went bleh! Now we've got Herbert here on security detail. Let's go and see if we can see this elephant, everybody. We are as live as Jamie is. I was going to show you some dung there, but elephants are more interesting than dung. So we're going to keep going this way. And please do talk to us. #SafariLive, questions@wildearth.tv. And we'll be going for a gentle stroll this morning. And it might not be so gentle if we manage to see those elephants. We're just going to walk a little bit quickly. There, I can see something moving there. Now what we're going to do, when you approach big game, you've got to be quite quiet. They are obviously quite a distance from us, so we will have some space to see them. I'm just going to show you the wind, so it's best that you've got to check which way the wind's going. Wind is perfect for us. That means that they won't smell us before we see them. Herbie's just going to go off in front there and see if he can spot them. So I heard them calling somewhere through there. And with any luck we'll get in and get a view of them. We won't get close, and for those of you who are coming on bushwalk with us for the first time, this is very much an experience where we try and get close to nature. We look at some of the smaller things, we lie on the ground every so often, we look at the dung and the beetles and the bugs and the birds and the tracks and that sort of thing. But if we get the rare chance to view some animals on foot, then we absolutely do that. But it's not going to be a big game viewing experience like it would be with Jamie, because she can get close to the animals in the car. And on foot, of course, we are seen as the ultimate predator out here. And because of that, animals are afraid of us, and so we don't want to threaten them. Ideally, you want to view animals without them knowing that you're there. And if you can do that, then you can view them safely, and there is no more amazing feeling in the world than to view big game on foot and without it knowing that you're there. And the reason you don't want it to know you're there is, like I say, because they see us as a predator, they can become threatened, and if they become threatened, they either run away, or because you're on foot, they come towards you to chase you away, and you don't really want that at all. I thought they were going to be a little bit closer than they are, but we'll just stick our noses through this thicket here. But if we hear them in sort of bush like this, where it's very thick, then we're not going to go sort of ranging in there, because then it does become a little more dangerous. Got to be much more aware. See, Herbie's now stopped and he's listening. Let's go a little bit closer. We're walking quite quickly, just to see if we can't get another view or a sound at least. And what's interesting is that in the winter time, of course, we can walk through these sorts of areas, because you can see quite a long way into them, and you can hear the snapping of branches. The elephants are eating branches and bushes, and so they make quite a lot of noise in the winter, and it's a lot clearer, so you can see a lot further. In summer, we'd think twice about just blasting through here after a herd of elephants. But the wind is good for us. Let us stop and listen here for a second. We're just going to listen briefly. I can't hear anything, so let's go back to Jamie. We'll see if we can find these elephants, and we'll see you hopefully with them just now.
While James sneaks up on his elephant herd, I've moved out of the position I was in just because the place I was in was the absolute only place at that point that you would have been able to see the lioness from. So I've left it for Taxon to be able to get in there and show his guests. And depending on where the afternoon takes us, we'll probably come back towards the end of the sunset safari, because at this point it's now down to one lioness defending a carcass. And for those of you who missed the sunrise safari, there were about 6 or 7 hyena just a little bit to the north of where they are, patiently resting up, all lying huddled together in a huddle of hyenas, or a flop of spots, depending on which description you would like to use, but essentially just patiently waiting for their moment to sneak up upon the lions and steal the carcass from them. There's not much left though. It looks like there's a little bit of the head and the legs, which is generally all that the lions leave behind. And I imagine that our pregnant lioness is not going to put up too much of a fight to defend that kill. I think she'll let them have it at this point. There's not really much left that's worth fighting over. We'll leave her for now, and we'll start heading across to where James had the mating lions this morning. It's been a lion-filled day. While we bounce along and leave our buffalo carcass behind us for now, Roger in Tampa, good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. You wanted to know how many lions took down that buffalo. Well, Roger, it's impossible for us to know really, but most likely it was just the 2 lionesses that we saw there. It's a relatively small buffalo. It was a young buffalo, a young female by the look of it, so a sub-adult. They're more than capable, 2 lionesses more than capable of taking down something of that size, although it is a little bit larger than 2 lionesses might usually tackle. But I think it was just the 2 of them, and the reason I say that is if there'd been another lion involved, they most likely would have stayed there, unless the mating pair that we're on our way to go and see if we can't find didn't have something to do with it. Because the only thing that is stronger than a lion's drive for food is a lion's drive to produce the next generation. And speaking of the next generation, I can't believe I forgot to mention this straight away because I'm so excited about it. It looks as though, from the tracks, and this is information coming from Aubrey and his tracker William, it looks as though the Nkahuma from Torchwood that had her cubs there and has been denning them, and we've just been listening on the Game Drive channel to all of the updates about how she's feeding them out in the open, and the cubs have been playing all around her with something of a sort of note of distress. It is to the east of our boundary, so we can't drive there, but it looks as though she has brought them onto Juma and into the drainage line around Buffelshoek Dam, which is incredibly exciting for all of us. I cannot wait for us to have all 5 Nkuhumas back together, cubs sort of bumbling about, falling over each other, playing with each other. There's so many exciting things to anticipate, and all of you, along with all of us, have watched the dramas of the lion dynamics out here unfold, and to finally get to this comfortable point where everything is settled and we're back to a new generation of little lion cubs is terribly exciting. Right, well, I was optimistic. That was very brave of me to have taken my jacket off, because it's definitely not warm enough for that. Here we go, that's layer 1. Layer 2 and 3 to follow as the evening grows chillier. It's lovely and bright and sunny, which is fine when you're sitting still, but the wind is still... No, stay. The wind is still threatening to take my hat off, let's put it that way. And Kirsty, lots of happy birthday wishes.
Thank you, everyone.
Kirsty says, thanks everybody. And most people agreeing you're spending your birthday in the best possible way. I agree with you all. This is in my experience, there's no other better way to spend a birthday. I think we're lucky in that we get to do this every day. So every day is like our birthday. Especially for VM when we find leopards, then it's like VM's birthday. It's like Christmas. Whenever we find VM a leopard, or VM finds us a leopard, depending on how things have gone. Speaking of leopards, our spotted cats. For those of you wondering about an update from Karula, perhaps you missed the sunrise safari. She left the Dake Kill, it was pretty much finished, and she went south. Judging by the tracks, from what we can gather, it doesn't seem as though her cubs went with her though. So she's hidden her cubs somewhere around Treehouse Dam once again. So she's gone south of our traverse area, probably off hunting once again because she does seem to be incredibly good at it. She's been phenomenally successful over the last few days, so she might have headed across to do that. But we'll probably swing past there at some point. There's just so many things to look at, I don't really know where to start. Okay, I think it's around about now we should start looking for lions and lionesses. Oh, I see him. He booked away to underneath that dead tree, somewhere around there. Let's go forward a little bit. Well spotted, VM. Sorry guys, that was a slender mongoose. Oh, I forgot that happened actually in my new lodgings. I was sitting on my bed reading a book and a slender mongoose came and walked up to the entrance of my door and looked at me for a while, and then realized I was actually present in the room and dashed off again. The slender mongoose is not a mongoose that we often get to put on camera because they're very shy and very quick. I think unfortunately it has gone to ground, as they often do. Nope, it's hidden. It's disappeared off. Well, we make our way and see if we can't figure out where these lions are hiding up. Let's go over to James, find out how his elephant approach is working out for him.
Right, everybody, here you can see the trees moving in the wind, and the elephants are just behind there. I'm not sure how big the herd is. We got sight of one cow, but it is very thick in there, and the wind is blowing, and they're walking straight into the wind, so we could probably get a decent view if we walked down there and along, but the bush I think is too close for an approach to a herd of elephants. Normally we'd only view a herd of elephants from a really safe distance, and a bull elephant maybe, if he wasn't in must, you'd take a bit more of a chance to approach, but you don't want to threaten a herd of elephants like that. This is kind of what they're looking for at the moment. It's a bulb, and it's probably a Kalenko bulb. You can see here that where you're an elephant you might want to eat it. It's a bit like an onion. The elephants will dig these things out and then eat them. And I think many of these bulbs are toxic to human beings, so I certainly wouldn't put my mouth to this. But you can see lots of moisture, and I'm sure if your digestive system is able to cope with this sort of thing, it's probably rather good to eat. There we are. And it'll be unquestionably a beautiful lily, or it's either a lily or one of those Kalenkos, and that's a sort of tall succulent plant. I'm not sure which. It doesn't smell like an onion. Anyway, there's lots and lots of moisture in it, and I suspect if you cooked it for long enough, it would become quite edible. Yeah, you can just see lots and lots of layers. Now somebody's going to come walking past this termite mound in a little while and say, "Oh, I wonder what ate this. I wonder what peeled up this bulb." And they shall be sore amazed to find that it was indeed a human being. I'm just going to ask Herbie if he can see the elephants. Alborn. Yeah, we can't see them there. I'm very reticent to go heading through the thick bush there to try and get a view of a herd. If it was a bull, I might think about it, but I think we're going to leave that herd because remember, it's got little ones, and so they'll be very, very defensive, especially if they come across us in very thick bush. So I think we're going to skirt our way around here and head down towards maybe where Karula left her cubs. We might be lucky to find them, but I think we'll find lots of other interesting things on the way there. Whoops-a-daisies. We're okay, everybody, don't fear. And of course, now what's going to happen with these elephants, we're going to skirt around this way. As soon as we get upwind of them, they're going to smell us. And if we're sufficiently far away, that's not a problem. What is this? You know what this is? This is another piece of wood or root that an elephant would dig up. And it probably comes from one of these combretum trees. And it comes from years and years and years of being dug up, growing again, dug up, growing again, and eventually these enormous root stocks underneath form. And you can see, you know what, let's try and cut it open. This kind of thing is really important food for animals. Steph sharpened my knife the other day, so I may stab myself by mistake to death. If I do, I'm sorry. Let's just see what's in it. It's quite interesting. We can get right in there. And this will be a storage facility for the plant. Look at that. Wow. I'm not going to eat any of that. Do you want some, Brian?
No, I'm alright.
Are you sure?
I'm fine.
You wouldn't like... That looks like carrot and smells like a bit like carrot. It doesn't, I don't think it tastes like carrot, and I certainly wouldn't eat it, but an elephant, I imagine, would find this extremely nutritious. So the plants out here often hold their nutrients down below the surface of the soil, because obviously that's a good place to keep your carbohydrates away from predators that might want to eat them. Herbie, do you eat this? You can eat this. Okay, for medicine, for what? Okay, okay. Different kind of diseases. Okay. Okay. Okay, so they use this apparently to mix this with lots of local medicines. That's really cool. And it's from a bush willow, hey? Not. It's not from a bush willow, everybody. I've misidentified it. From which plant? From this one? Mbezana? No. We're just trying to find out exactly which plant it comes from. It's not a bush willow. Okay, it's not a bush willow, everybody. Okay, I've misidentified it horribly. We will find out during the course of the drive, and I'll let you know what it was. So if you're... Derma. That's the Shangaan name for it. Derma, okay? That's Derma, everyone. If you're feeling a little peaky, that's what you have. Right, on we go. I'll find out what Derma is, and if we find it in English, I shall let you know. Right, in the meantime, let's go across to Jamie and get an update from her.
Well, my update for you is that I don't have an update for now, except that the lions appeared to have moved from when they were last seen, going into the block just north of the Djuma Dam, so north of where the camera sits 24 hours a day. Now it just becomes a question of trying to figure out where they went. Look, there's a lion on a termite mound in the shade. It's a lioness. Well, that answers one question. Or at least we've accounted for one missing lioness. We've now got another one to look for. Because I don't know if this is the one that's come from the buffalo kill. Or if it's the female that... Oh, hold on, no. No, that's the one that came from the buffalo kill, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's the young female. No, it's not. It's not the young female. But this is not the lioness that was mating with the Birmingham boy, because as far as I know, that was Amber Eyes. Okay. Cool. So we've got lioness number 4 of the day, if I'm keeping track of things correctly. The pregnant one was feeding off the buffalo carcass. The other lioness, as far as I know, was the youngest of the group. The lioness mating with the Birmingham boy was the amber-eyed female. Which lion? I mean, this is the twin spot lioness with the 2 dots on the bottom of her nose. Okay, well, we're slowly starting to gather Nkuhuma lionesses. They're getting closer and closer together. Hopefully at some point they'll decide to stay together. Now, isn't this the one with the cubs? Let's go investigate. We're going to go and have a look and see if she's got any fresh suckle marks that she can show us. Because I think this might be the lioness with the babies. With the dark 2 dots underneath her nose. Sure, keeping track of these things is proving to be relatively tricky. Because where on earth did that male and female go? Apparently they were seen lying up in the shade around Gowrie Cutline, around the Jackalberry. I've just done a quick search around there. They're not there. Hello, girl. Gracie, who is 8 years old, would like to wish Kirsty a very, very happy birthday, since she is involved in sorting out Safari James for Gracie, as well as providing a teacup or tea saucer for the tea party. And Gracie would just like to say, Kirsty, that she loves you for that.
Thank you, Gracie.
So Gracie, that was an awesome message coming through. I think Kirsty's really, really happy to hear that. I think you might have made Kirsty's birthday. She looks very happy. So while we try and navigate around this lioness, let's go over to James and look at something with slightly more legs than one lion.
Look, everybody, there is a wolf spider that was found to us by, obviously, Herbert, not me, and he found it underneath a little log. And we found 2 kinds of spiders, and the other one, I don't know what it was. This one is a little wolf spider, and it's a non-web building spider. All spiders can produce silk, but this particular one will not build silk to build a web. And it will hunt whatever comes to lurk under this log. And you know, it's a difficult time if you happen to be a spider or any cold-blooded organism. It is quite cold, there's not a lot to eat, there's very little moisture, and so many of these animals will just be kind of in a state of semi-dormancy, lurking under the logs and waiting for the rain and the better times ahead. But isn't he pretty? He's silver and black, and he's got little stripes on his back, and he's got his front legs up there like that, in a sort of pose of defiance. He's daring Brian to zoom in on him even further. I think that's fantastic. Now it's very peaceful out here. I can hear 1 or 2 birds calling. I can hear Herbert fossicking about for things in front of us. It's a lovely, lovely Sunday afternoon, and even if you're an arachnophobe, you can appreciate the beauty of that wonderful spider. Alright, Brian, I think that's enough of that spider, don't you? Yes. Now, when you are out in the wilderness, in case we do have 1 or 2 younger viewers, what you've got to do is make sure that if you do move a log, you try and replace it in the same place that you found it. That's not always possible. But there we go. At least then he's got the same shade that he had. He can move a little bit up and down if he wants to. Right, let's carry on this way. Tally-ho, Brian. See what else we can find. Herbert has been fossicking about here, underneath these logs, and you'll definitely find that there'll be something, probably mainly termites, living underneath all of this dead bark that the elephants have provided. Oh, Herbert, I think, has got sight of those elephants. Just test the wind again, which is of course superfluous. Oh, here we go. We've got the elephants here. Come over here. There they are. Now the wind is still good for us. It's blowing basically straight into the face of that elephant. So they won't smell us. And the obvious answer or question to ask here is, if that elephant turns, will it see us? And the answer is yes, probably. If we are standing in the shade, I still think that she'd see us. Here, young bull there. Doesn't seem to be too perturbed. And then what it would either do is ignore us completely, or it's going to turn and it would lift its head and lift its ears as if to say, what are you doing here? Now it's probably at the moment about 80 meters away from us. So that's about, what's that? It's about 260 feet or so. And so were the elephant to become aware of us and become slightly threatened, we'd simply disappear, would melt into the bush behind us. And then the elephant would no longer be stressed. So if you're viewing a herd of elephants, this is a goodly distance to be doing it at. That's a young bull. You can see that from the fact that there are no mammary glands between the front legs. So there's a young bull with the herd. Let's test the wind again quickly. Yeah. You can see the wind is fantastically good for us. Right, so that bush is quite thick. I don't think we're going to try and get any closer to them. We're going to carry on down through here, and while we do that, let's go back to Jamie and her lyre.
We've managed to reposition and find ourselves a slightly better view of our surprise lioness on a termite mound. This termite mound's been quite productive, actually. I've seen lionesses here a couple of times. They always take me by surprise. I've just been puzzling over whether or not this is the lioness that was at the kill. I don't think it is, because if we have a nice close look at her nose. Oh. If you have a nice close look at her nose, you'll see absolutely nothing because her face is turned away. But when she does turn back towards us, you'll be able to see that she's got a lot more black around her nose than the lioness that we saw with the pregnant female. Oh, she's also got an interesting thing on her pad. Oh, is that just a rock? Nope, that's just a piece of soil. I thought she had a patchy part of her foot. Well, she's found herself a perfect place. Unfortunately, the view of her belly means that we can't see if she's got suckle marks. She's hidden them away very carefully, very discreetly, and is looking for all the world like she could not be more content in her spot. And it does look incredibly comfortable up there. All curled up, resting, pillowing her face on her paws. Oh, where's the male and the other female gone? A beautiful tawny coat, and makes lions incredibly famous. And if we look there, you look really, really closely, you can see the faintest hint of spots on her fur. And as a cub, those would have been particularly prominent to help camouflage and hide her. At this point now, in adulthood, they've almost completely faded away. Excuse me. Something in the air has made me cough. The Djuma seems to be full of lions. They just appear to be really rather scattered. And while we sit here, we're going to be listening very, very carefully for any sound of the mating pair, which were last seen not far from where we are at all. I wonder if she probably tried to meet up with Amber Eyes and then got excluded. Now, James Richard, well, we've been looking at our lioness, and we often see them walk up to branches and they rub their cheeks on them. James would like to know whether or not the lionesses have a similar number or lions have a similar number of scent glands as domestic cats do, and whether or not that they are located in the same place. And James, yes, pretty much. I mean, they've got preorbital glands, they've got glands around their cheeks, as far as I know. One of the reasons why our domestic cats rub their cheeks like they do on us or on various objects, lionesses and lions do exactly the same thing. If they are all sort of in the same place, if it's the same number as domestic house cats, I have to be completely honest with you, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if they're identical or if there are slight differences between them. And of course, a cat is part of the feline family, as they all are, but felis rather than panthera, so there are certain differences. And one of those might be the positioning of the scent glands. But for those of you who are a little bit more intimately aware of the position of lion scent glands, if you do have any further information on that, I would love to hear from you. And you can send that through to #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@wildearth.tv. She looks like she can't think of a better way to spend a Sunday afternoon. She just looked up there, wants to see what had attracted her attention. Can't hear any growling sounds of lions mating. By the sounds of it, Amber Eyes wasn't terribly enamored by the idea of the Birmingham boy. It sounded like she was kept trying to avoid him and lose him. So it might be that she's come to the end of her estrus cycle and she actually wants to join up with the rest of her pride. Amber Eyes always seems to take one of the sort of main roles in the Nkuhuma pride, and then there's the two females, like the one in front of us, or including the one in front of us, of a slightly younger age. And apparently all of these females, including Amber Eyes, all mothered, or all part of sort of siblings of each other, thanks to the oldest lioness in the Nkuhuma pride, the female with a slightly grey face. Now, there's an interesting history there, but it does seem to me that Amber Eyes takes a far more dominant, and in fact she's a lot more bold than these lionesses, the younger lionesses. You can hear trees breaking around me, which means that there are elephants in the area, which is why she keeps looking up. It could even be the same elephants that James was trying to track on foot earlier. And that might be one of the big reasons why our lions didn't stay in the same place that they were this morning. Elephants, as you know, look at that. Look at that stare. Have you ever seen anything so intensely focused as a lion's expression? Or just sleepy. Perhaps a little bit more sleepy at this point, is maybe a closer description. But she does keep looking off to the east of us, I think hoping to be reunited with the rest of them in her pride. But yes, elephants really do not like predators. They don't like the smell. They particularly don't like lions and wild dogs. I think one of the big reasons is because lions and wild dogs are probably among the most pungent of the predators. Watching her staring off into the distance, we can but wait and see. And perhaps we'll go and have a look in a moment for the rest of the pride, or at least the mating pair. But while we do that, let's go over to James, who's found something more plant-based.
Well, everybody, many of you, of course, will have seen this plant before. It is the baboon's tail, and as Herbert has told us, and Steph, and I'm sure Steph has told you, the baboon's tail is used extensively out in these rural areas as a lightning deterrent. So if you don't want lightning to strike your house, which most people don't really want that, you take this and you hang it in a tree just outside your house, and apparently it is a lightning deterrent. But what Herbert did say this time as well is that you don't find these outside of protected areas. He says as soon as they grow anywhere, they're gathered in great numbers and they're taken away and they're sold at markets, and there's an enormous market in Johannesburg where you can buy traditional medicines. And so you only find these rather special plants here in the protected areas, and they come to life almost immediately after the first bits of rain come. They produce lovely green leaves, and then they produce beautiful purple flowers. And well, I mean, they're pretty common out here, especially in the shallow soils where we're sitting now. The other thing they're used for is, of course, that they've got, you can see they're a succulent, and they've got oil in them. And so let's just, I'll tell you what, we'll make use of my knife again, and I'll just, Just very sore, everybody. I put a thorn in my bum. Oh, terrible, Brian. Yes. Let's just chop this one off. And Herbert says it's so rich in oil that if you want to transport fire from one place to another, this is a very good plant to do it with. Of course, you probably have to have an extremely powerful knife in order to do that. And it's probably only in summer, but let's just try and break this open. I'm not having a particularly good time of it, am I, Brian? Look how fibrous it is. And it doesn't feel oily now, but it's amazing how quickly it gets wet as soon as the water comes. And unlike a woody plant, so if you've got a tree, for example, the inner wood, like I've just opened out here, would be dead. So it would be the old vascular tissue. A plant like this will suck water up its entire length. So all of these bits and pieces here will be vascular tissue that will suck water up. And so you can see why it will very, very quickly. It's like a sponge. It's like it's basically like a long sponge that will suck up water as soon as it hits the ground. Very nice. But it doesn't feel very oily now. No, it does, you know. It does feel quite oily. So that's how you transport a bit of fire from one spot to another. Now, that lioness, everyone seems to be deeply fascinated by whether or not she's lactating. Certainly Mike Grover saw her earlier on today, and he indicated that she was lactating. So she could well be the torchwood lioness that has brought her cubs onto Djuma. Now that would be exciting. Let's go back and see if Jamie's found out what the truth is.
Well, that's a little interesting piece of information that I was not aware of, was the fact that Mike had seen her earlier and thought that she was lactating. If indeed she is the lioness that has brought her cubs onto Djuma, then we do have exciting prospects for the afternoon. A lioness, when her cubs are new and young, will hide them away in a suitable den site for up to 6 weeks at a time, although she usually moves dens a couple of times during that period of confinement. And she'll leave them for a good couple of hours, up to a day or more, before she returns to feed them. But I think she's probably, if she has moved them, she might well have come out for a little bit of a break, some rest and relaxation away from the squalling cubs and annoying biting little creatures that have been the largest part of her life for the last however many weeks. I think they must have been born about a month ago, perhaps even 5 weeks ago. We're definitely getting to the point that they will be coming out into the open once again. I'm really hoping, though, at some point she will be kind enough to display her belly to us, and then we might be able to get a little bit of a better idea. What we're looking for in terms of the suckle marks and lactation, it's pretty self-evident, really, that where cubs suckle and drink milk from their mothers, they leave a little wet ring of matted fur that starts to become a bit yellow and a bit sticky around the edge. And that's what we are searching, or what we're hoping to see. I just have a feeling I haven't seen this lioness in a while. The one thing that threw me off ever so briefly was just the sort of the messed up fur on the back of her neck, the little ridges, almost like a lioness that had been mating, as the male grabs her behind the back of the head. But I think that might actually be more due to ticks than a mating grab. What you're looking at here, if she is the pregnant, or sorry, if she is the mother of the new cubs, is a lioness exceptionally grateful to have some time and some peace all to herself. Might be quite a nice idea to reverse track her and just get a rough idea as to where she's hiding those babies. We might do that in a little bit. I don't think she's going to move terribly much, although it's a bit of a risk on these winter afternoons. On a cool day like today, they're not really governed by restrictions of temperature. So she's not going to get too hot, although she's enjoying the shade for now. But they can move about at pretty much any time of the day. There we go. Isn't that an incredible view of a lion's coat? The enormous forepaws, the size of my hand, actually much larger than the size of my hand, and then her delicate features. I might be biased because we've spent more time with them than we have with any of the other lions, but I feel as though the Nkuhuma Pride are probably the best looking of all of the lions that we see. There's definitely something very, very attractive about them. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the game drive comms. Guys, it sounds as though this morning Karula was actually seen away from the cub site, away from where the tracks crossed the road, but apparently the landowners did see her. So she has been around, and that's something interesting. I think we might need to think about going to have a look around for her. She might have gone back just to fetch the cubs before heading back south. But that's just the first time I've heard that information. It must have been after the sunset, the close of the sunrise safari. Too many places, too many things to do and places to look. I don't know where to start, or at least carry on. I know where I've started now. We always talk about how nervous the animals get in windy weather, and that applies even to our apex predators, particularly lionesses alone. It's sort of constantly on alert. Girl, don't you think you want to stand up, just briefly give us a view of your stomach, and then lie down again? Might be hugely helpful. There's not much in the world that looks as relaxed as a lioness can look. I don't think we're going to stay with her for the whole of the sunset safari, particularly since there's only one of us on the vehicle. No, let's rephrase that. There's only one of us out on the vehicles in terms of driving around. That means we need to cover a little bit of extra ground if we can, or try and make up for it by covering a little bit of extra ground. So at some point soon we might leave our lioness temporarily, go and do a quick loop, a search for the male and the female, as well as heading to where Karula was last seen. See if perhaps the tracks don't tell us a story about what went on there this morning. Oh, never mind. Hold on. Oh, yes, yes, yes. There we go. That's what we want to see. Oh, that very much to me looks like suckle marks. Ah, the briefest view she could possibly give us. Sorry guys, I'll have to go on the Game Drive comms. Copy that, thanks Tex, well done. I'd like to join you. Copy that, thank you. Okay, we don't have to go looking for Karula because we have a lovely surprise for you. Or at least we've got sort of a surprise for you. We're going to leave our lioness for now. We're going to come back. In the meantime, let's find out what James is up to.
Now, everybody, this spectacularly special tree I've told you about many times. It's the buffalo thorn, Ziziphus mucronata, and I've told you about the fact that it's used to go and collect the spirits of a dead ancestor, or not a dead ancestor, a dead relative, from if they've died away from home. You use this tree to do that. But Herbert has just told me something really extra special, a modern use for this tree. Now, out here, of course, there are many rural schools. Unemployment is enormously high. And what people do is, if you pass your matric, which is your high school, basically, if you get your high school, you take one of these things, or a branch of this tree. You try not to spike yourself to death on it while you're doing it. Let me just try and remove it for you. How deeply embarrassing. I will try and get it off this tree without killing myself. There we are. Okay. What you do is you take a branch like this, maybe even smaller than this, and you put it in the bag that you're going to go, you're going to go away from here to go and look for work, because there's no work in the villages here. So you buy a bag, and you put this underneath your clothes in the bag, and when you get to where you're going, you hang the bag with this branch, possibly on the outside, on the wall. And every time you come home from wherever it is, and you probably move into a tin shack somewhere in a place like Johannesburg, you come home, and you remember that you've got to look forward to the future, and it's good to go off and experience new things, and that's what that long thorn is for. And then you also look at the hooked thorn there, and the hooked thorn tells you that you must never forget where you've come from, and that you will always have to go back home eventually. And I think that's the most comforting story, because to go and look for work out here from these villages must be utterly terrifying. Can you imagine growing up in a tiny little village where there are probably, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people there, and there's no running water, there are no tar roads, you get your matric certificate, which is your high schooling diploma, and now you go off to look for work in a city like Johannesburg, which is the same size as, well, it's 5 or 6 million people. So, I mean, it's massive. It's as big as probably New York City is. And that many people living there. And you'll go and live in a tin shack, and it's cold, and it's difficult, and then you hang this on your wall. And it reminds you that you're from the beautiful rural Lowveld here in Gazankulu. Isn't that nice? I think that's the most wonderful story. Come on, sounds like a Texan's found Karula, so that's very good news. I won't be going to see Karula on foot. Hello, a new viewer called The Brown Lamb. You say you've just discovered this channel, and what have you been missing? Well, the answer is quite a lot, really. It's been going for 9 years, so for 9 years your life has been immeasurably poorer than it is now. I've only been here for a year, and you're most welcome, and thank you for watching us, and thank you for getting hold of us. We're on bushwalk now. We don't always do this. We sometimes go in the vehicles, like Jamie's doing. And, well, I don't know what. It's great to have you along, and I hope you stay with us. Jamie's had the lions. We're looking for more the small things, and well, like this incredible story that I've just been told about this wonderful tree called Ziziphus mucronata. The brown lamb. We hope to hear from you again very shortly. Now, there's something else I wanted to show you, but unfortunately, the tree species that Herbert spoke of is not around. We need a marula tree. Anyway, we'll find one as we go. Just have a quick look here. This remarkable piece of grass is a very lovely golden flaxen colour. It's called Digitaria eriantha. It's a very good grazing grass, and it's one of the only grasses with an inflorescence left. The inflorescence is the stalk on which the flowers live. Well, actually it's the flowers as well. And you can see in the middle of the flowers here is a little spider. And I'm just going to see if I can spot it. Can you see it? It might actually be absent. But you can see it did live here once. You can see the shells of the tiny little insects it ate. Those are the shiny black things. Can you see them, Brian? Those shiny black things are the exoskeletons of the tiny insects that were devoured by the spider here. They're most likely ants, and the ants will come up and try and get bits and pieces and carry the seeds away, and no doubt many of them fell prey to this little spider. Every little piece of vegetation out here is a mini ecosystem. Genevieve, you're in New York and you're wondering about spiders and whether they'd ever prey on something like a tick. I'm sure a spider would prey on a tick if it could get hold of it. Remember though, a tick is not really likely to come across a spider and vice versa. A tick won't prey on a spider, no. That's just not really going to happen because a tick it needs to suck blood out of a mammal. That's what it's designed to do. And because of that, it's unlikely to come across a spider. It's not. I suppose it might come across a spider on a grass stalk like this. Ticks do hang out on grass stalks like this and wait for mammals to walk past, so that's well possible. But it's not going to fall into an orb web, for example, of a spider because they don't fly. Ticks. It's not going to be hunted by a wolf spider because they're not often on the ground. So most likely they wouldn't come across each other, but it's certainly possible that a spider like this could have eaten a tick sitting on the edge of this grass. And around this time of the year, you'd expect to find quite a few more pieces of grass like this, simply because it's been so dry, we don't have so many this year. And so you'd expect to see around an area like this a whole field of these sort of pieces of grass, and they're not particularly nutritious to eat, but they go that lovely golden color during the winter time. But because we've had so very little rain this year, there aren't that many of them. And there's another one here that's also got a spider in it. Isn't that amazing? And I think the spider too is deceased no longer. Isn't that nice? Now, James Richard, you're wondering if the predator dynamics between spiders and insects change during the winter months. Well, they do, because the insects are really, there are not many around. And just about all the insects will go dormant for the period of winter, as will many of the spiders, and that's why I don't think there's a spider in this tiny little web here. So, I guess from that point of view, yes, the dynamics would change. But remember, spiders are all carnivores, so they can only eat insects. They're not going to eat anything else out here, which means they must go dormant, and therefore I suppose the relationship during the winter months does change indirectly. Right, let's just head across to Jamie and find out how far away she is from the leopard.
Perfect timing. We are just moving in to come and have a look at Karula. Let us see. Oh, there. Sitting like the queen that she is on the top of a termite mound. We're just going to try and find ourselves a space here. Oh, everybody watch heads. How's your view there, Vian? Perfect. And there we have it, the queen herself. How lucky have we been with big cats recently? It's just been incredible. Just to let you know where we are, this is pretty much where she's been hanging out for the last 5 or so days. She is right close to Treehouse Dam on a road called Savage's Track. And I would love to know the history behind the naming of the road Savage's Track. And we just want to make sure that James knows where we are as well, so that he doesn't come stumbling through into the sighting. I've done that before. I've accidentally walked in on, been tracking lions and didn't have my Game Drive channel on, and found myself faced with vehicles plus lions. The people in the vehicles were very surprised to see me. Oh, two big cats, two newish mothers on termite mounds. It's not a bad way to have a Sunday afternoon. We're not sure where her cubs are. I think that they've probably been left somewhere in the block a little bit to the south of us, to the south of the Treehouse Dam. And she's also enjoying a moment of peace to herself. Perhaps Sunday is a day where mothers can have a little bit of a break, a little breather from their babysitting duties. And she looks truly regal as she surveys the surroundings. If this is your first time encountering her, just a quick update. This is Karula, meaning peace or the peaceful one. She is also known as the Queen of Juma, 12 years old, and with probably one of the most unprecedented success rates in terms of raising cubs, which is not an easy thing to do if you're a leopard. And compared to our lioness mom that we saw on the lioness does initially, but at that point she's got, once they reach a certain age, she's got the protection of the rest of the pride and the help of the rest of the pride, because lionesses from the same pride are all related, and they will all they'll help to keep the cubs fed even if they're not their own, whereas a female leopard has to do things all by herself. So times are a little bit harder. She's watching the comings and goings with a relaxed kind of interest. Hello, Paul, who is a new viewer. I am very glad that your first leopard sighting on Safari Live was in fact our queen herself, the Queen of Juma, Karula. So Paul is a new viewer, and this is the first time that he has seen a leopard on Safari Live. And the exciting thing about this, Paul, is that Karula actually has two young cubs, 5 months of age, a little boy and a little girl, that we have had the pleasure and the privilege of watching pretty much since the day they were born, strangely enough. Brent happened to find her straight after that moment, when they were just little tiny bundles of fluff. Just bear with me one moment. Sounds might get a little bit strange, and the reason that's going to happen is because I'm going to move the microphone that is currently sitting in my hat. I'm just going to put it in my hand so that I can speak very, very softly. So just bear with me if you get some funny sounds. There we go. So there's other vehicles right next to us, which means that we're going to try and speak as softly as possible without disturbing their experience as well. And of course for Karula, the less noise, the less interference, the better. Aaron, in New Zealand, speaking about our royal lineage that we have here, Aaron in New Zealand says that he feels as if we should all bow down to Queen Karula. I'm not sure what she would think of that. I think she might look upon you with a suitable royal disdain and probably move off a little bit in confusion. And Karula, of course, just doing what instinct tells her to, but in a truly extraordinary fashion. And we've spent so much time with these incredible animals. I mean, I've been working here for a year now, driving around, probably close to a year since I first encountered her. Of course, heard many stories about her, but it's been an absolute pleasure in getting to know her over the last few months and over the last year. Little alert head bob. She might have spotted something over there. The thing about these live safaris is that you take good moments with bad. And just before, a couple of months before I started working here, the viewers of Safari Live were, I don't know if were witness to an incredibly sad state of affairs where hyenas stole and killed Karula's new cubs. That's something I'm very glad I didn't have to witness. It does happen. Very, very common to see. Of course, most of you know that leopards have an average mortality rate of about 70% before their first year of life. Now, Tony, on that subject, you were wondering whether or not a leopardess that has lost her cubs might try to steal another's. My instinctive answer is probably not. However, strange things happen with maternal instincts, so I don't want to say never. There's all kinds of stories about female animals that have lost their offspring, adopting others, and often that even works in a cross-species situation. You hear stories of, I showed you pictures at one point of an African wildcat. Oh, look at that, she's looking right at us. But yes, I showed you pictures of an African wildcat suckling a serval. Do I think a wild leopard, because that's a very artificial situation, do I think a wild leopard would steal another's cubs? I don't think so, but never say never. There is, of course, a recorded case of a female adopting a cub. It was, I believe, there was a big paper written about it. I know that Brent was witness to this situation in Londolozi, where a mother had cubs, and she ended up adopting her daughter's one cub and raising it to adulthood. And we try to work out if Karula's got her young ones with her or not. I don't think that she does. But while we have a look and while I get onto the game drive comms, let's go find out what James is doing with a deceased tree.
Oh, hello everybody. I'm not really going to eat this, despite the fact that it looks like a rather pleasant sort of marbled cake for a Sunday afternoon tea. Makes me rather hungry, doesn't it, Brian? Yes. Now, come over here, everyone. Come a little bit closer. Come on, don't stand over there, everyone. Come over here and get close. This here is fungus. You see the white fluffy stuff here? It looks like bread mold. And you can see the mycelia growing through here. Now, the question is, what put it there? How did it get there? What purpose is it serving? Well, there's a number of questions, some of which you may or may not be interested in. But what I think it has happened, and if you look carefully here, you can see the dung of a termite. And I think what's happened is the termites have got into this wood. Now remember that many termites, including the fungus-growing termite or the mound-building termite, Macrotermes natalensis, grow fungus gardens because they lack the digestive enzymes to digest cellulose and lignin, which is the plant. That's what makes wood hard. What makes plants fibrous and difficult to digest. So what they do is they plant fungus spores on the wood, and the fungus then digests away the wood, and then they eat the fungus. And I think that's what we found over here underneath the bark of this marula tree. Now the other reason I think that that's what's going on here is that if you look inside here, you can see there's a lot of sand. It's that sandy sort of remnants of where termites have been. I think that's rather spectacular, actually. And if you look down here, you can see a particularly impressive spot of fluffy fungus. See there? Look at that. Now, marvellous that Karula the Queen is there. And equally so, I'm sure that she will take you, if you sit with her for long enough, I'm fairly sure she'll take you to George and Charlotte at some stage. Now, what is this? There's nothing. Then, the other thing we found was we found two fascinating things in this dead tree. I'd love to say I was responsible for them. I was not. This was Herbert again. Over here, a talky beetle. Now, that's a beetle that makes a clicking noise during the summertime. This one is never going to click again. You see that, Brian?
I do.
It's not live.
It has no head?
It has no head. As you say, I tried to give it mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Unfortunately, no, it's not going to work. But what is interesting about it is the fact that the back wings are fused into what we call an elytra. Now, many beetles are flightless. This particular one is completely flightless. And these used to be the wings. And those are the front wings. And those front wings have fused into this hardened shell over the back of the beetle. I think that's quite interesting. That's now called an elytra. And then, just below this hapless talky beetle, long dead, unresuscitatable, there is a snake's egg. And the snake's egg has somehow got into the wood of this tree. I mean, obviously it didn't do that on its own. It was placed there by whatever snake laid it, and it's a very big egg. So I suspect that that was either a mamba or perhaps even a python. But pythons tend to lay more than that, so I don't know. It could have been a big lizard as well. I'm not sure exactly. But the lizards tend to have very hard shells. Anyway, I'm not sure how it got in there. But perhaps when the termites set about eating this, it was quite soft, and whatever snaky got in there laid its eggy there, and it's got kind of stuck into the termite mound, and it's obviously disappeared. Okay, let us move along. And while we do that, I think we'll send you straight back to the marvellous Queen of Djuma, Kurula, the peaceful.
Looking utterly glorious in the afternoon sun. There is no better time of day than, between the early morning and the afternoon, those are the two best times to watch leopards. And as human beings, we cannot help but be struck by their extraordinary grace and beauty. Now, as with earlier sightings, there will be other people that want to make their way. So we've got limited time with her. We're still okay. We're not leaving just yet. But we will be making space so that other people can come and join the sighting. And I imagine that she's hoping that this wind will continue for at least another few hours, since it is perfect hunting weather. And I think that's one of the reasons why she has been so successful. You can see every now and again something catches her attention, and she tries to work out whether or not it's worth hunting. And hello to Bud in North Carolina, as we sit with Queen Karula Sant's little cubs. You were wondering at what age they will be old enough to not have to stay hidden and follow her out in the open. The truth is, she will continue to hide them away until they are old, until they're about a year old and even older. So there's never really a time that a female leopard keeps her cubs with her constantly. She'll often hide them away, she'll ditch them, so to speak, because she doesn't really want them messing up her hunting, bearing in mind that leopards are such stealth predators that when they are moving, almost invariably, when they are mothers of young cubs, they're looking for food. So what she'll do is, throughout their juvenile stage and their adolescence, she'll keep them hidden, and then she will go and hunt, and then she'll walk back and she'll get them. And at that point they will be more than content while she's leading them back to the kill to walk out in the open. They're already doing that now, accompanying her wherever she goes. And it's amazing watching how that sort of thing is coordinated and communicated by the female leopards and lions. And the way that they tell them to they communicate to the cubs that they must either stay put or follow. Sorry guys, lots of communication happening on the Game Drive channel. I'm just listening to hear whether or not we need to move out just yet. We're just going to turn down for now. Otherwise, I'm going to start mixing up my sentences with too many things happening in my brain. Absolutely stunning view. I don't get more picturesque than this. And hello to Fiona in the United Kingdom, and a warm welcome on our safaris. I hope you are loving every moment of it, and I'm so glad that within our first hour we've managed to, or our first hour and a half, we've been able to show you 2 of our 3 big cats. Now, we spoke about the ticks around the back of that lioness's neck, and of course, whilst leopards look beautiful and perfect, they also are covered in ticks. And you wanted to know what diseases the big cats can get from them. Hold on. Sorry, Fiona, stand by. Oh, never mind. She's just getting more comfortable. I thought she spotted something she wanted to hunt. Are you wondering about tick-borne diseases? And whether or not there is anything that they can contract, or if they have a natural resistance. So unlike the ticks of Europe and America, our ticks do not carry Lyme disease. The one thing that they do, the occasional tick does carry, is a rickettsia bacteria, which passes on a disease known as tick bite fever. But yes, the big cats absolutely have a resistance to it. And interestingly enough, they have a resistance to not just tick-borne diseases, but lots of other diseases as well. So studies have shown that there's actually an enormous amount of, or a very, very high percentage of the big cats that carry something like tuberculosis. And it seems as though it doesn't really affect them in a huge way until it gets to the point that they are weakened for some other reason. The same goes for the buffalo. It's something like 70%, or around 70, maybe even up to 80% in the southern Kruger, and 50% in the central area, which is, I think, where we would fall underneath. We'd sort of fall into that area. 50% of them are carriers, particularly lions, of tuberculosis. There's also some interesting literature that suggests, but not conclusively proves, that leopards may have a biological resistance to rabies. And that, of course, immediately raises the question of Sindile, the young male leopard that caught the dog, that later proved to have rabies. And there is some evidence to suggest, okay, he was vaccinated, so that's a different scenario, but there is some evidence to suggest that they do have a degree that they can fight off the disease, which is very, very positive for our leopard populations. There's also the occasional risk of feline distemper and FIVs, feline immunodeficiency. So this is similar to the human form of HIV, but those generally are only contracted by cats that are exposed to domestic felids or stray cats. Doesn't she look absolutely gorgeous in this afternoon light? Those golden eyes of hers. Her son's eye, or at least her new son, who has been nicknamed Prince George by James, which I do not, I'm not a huge fan of, to be 100% honest with you, but I'm starting to do it accidentally anyway. So Prince George appears to have eyes quite a similar colour to his mom, or at least I think they're going to go a similar colour to his mom, that sort of golden yellowy colour. But her daughter has the most uniquely brown eyes of any leopard cub I have ever seen. It's amazing how much eye colour variation you get with leopards in particular, lions as well, but especially our different leopards. Anywhere from blue-green right across to brown. Now you'll see every now and again she looks up, alert, and checking out whatever it is that she's heard or seen. And Jenny, in Texas, with their superior senses, you would like to know how far a leopard can see. I don't know exactly how far they can see. I can tell you that, obviously, which is something that you know, their vision is dictated by movement, or attracted at least to movement. I also think their vision is a lot better than ours is, particularly when used in conjunction with their incredibly sensitive hearing and smell. But you're probably looking at about 100 or so yards, so just under 100 meters is probably where their vision works best. And of course they don't see in the vivid colors that we do. They don't have the same number of cone cells. They do see a little bit of color, but not to the same extent. But when it comes to movement, their eyes are very much attuned to picking something up, which makes sense. Looks terribly comfortable, nestled in her termite mound. And when VM zoomed out there, and now as he sort of zooms in a bit closer, gives you an idea as to just how well those leopard camouflage really works. Even when she's sitting relatively prominently on a bare termite mound, there's not much in the way of cover, she still manages to disappear. And as close as she is to the road, Taxon did a very good job of spotting her for us on that termite mound. Exceptionally well developed camouflage that they have. And they're famous, of course, for their camouflage. They are famous for their tree climbing skills. James, on the other hand, is not particularly famous for his camouflage, and possibly we could call him infamous in terms of his tree climbing skills. Let's go see if he's going to fall out of this one.
I think it's a little bit rough to call me infamous for tree climbing. I have half fallen out of one tree. On my whole career, I've climbed many trees, and I think Jamie's being very unkind, and I'm very upset with her. Now, we're in a tree called a low-felt milkberry, my favourite tree out here. Herbert tells me its Shangaan name is Mwambo, which I think is quite a nice name too. I've no doubt I've mispronounced it, but I shall get further lessons as we go along the afternoon. The reason I'm in this tree, other than the fact that it is my very favourite tree, is that it's Karula's favourite tree too. She comes to here quite often, and very often she'll come from the sort of corner of Zoe's Road, which is the southwestern corner of the reserve. She'll walk up this way, past this tree. She'll often spend a bit of time here, and sometimes she'll have a kill up in the tree here, and then she'll carry on wherever it is that she's going. So this tends to be a route that she likes to go past, and I mean, she's obviously got very fine taste, because this is a very, very pleasant tree. It's called a milkberry because it's got a milky latex in the leaves, and you also find that milky latex in the very sweet fruit, which is quite pleasant to eat. And this one has got so very big because it's on a termite mound, and we were asked many times, or we have been asked in the past, about the amount or the nutrients in termite mounds and how nutrient rich they are and why the trees get so big in them. And it is because the nutrients are so impressive in the termite mound. And you can see the reason, one of the reasons it's my favorite tree, is that it's like a it's like a sort of hobbit's tree almost. It's sort of gnarled and beautifully designed in a kind of random fashion, and I just think that's rather marvelous. I nearly put my hand on what's known as a velvet ant, which is the male version of a wasp. No, sorry, a female wasp, flightless wasp, and it would have stinged me, and then I would have cried very loudly and possibly fallen out of this tree onto Brian. Brian, would you be prepared to catch me if I fell? Why not? Oh, he says he won't catch me, everyone, because he's carrying the camera. Which I think... You will film me falling. You'll film my demise. Yes, then it would be, I suppose, fairly infamous. Ah, beautiful. Now, Heidi, while we're sitting up here and I'm looking for further velvet ants, you say, what bug out here would sting you the most painfully and cause the greatest, but without causing damage? I think almost certainly, for me, it would be a wasp. What you might term a hornet. So those wasps that build those paper nests, and when they get going, when they sting you, it is very, very painful indeed. Termites will give you a bite, it's not so sore. Bees can give you a sting, so I mean, if you're allergic to bees, that's a dreadful thing to be stung by. You can get stung by the odd ant. Yeah, but I think, for me, I reckon that a sting from a paper wasp or hornet is one of the most nasty things that can possibly happen to you out here, without any long-term effects. Long-term effects, of course, of being bitten by a snake, substantially worse than that. Right, shall we try and get down, Brian? Or should we just explore the tree a bit more? Now, I've got to tell you, my confidence took a bit of a knock the other day when I nearly fell out of that tree on Cheetah Plains. And that's because, of course, the tree broke under my substantial weight. And that made me very nervous. But I'm okay now, everybody. I know you're all very worried about me, but there's no need to be. Well, not at this stage anyway. I was also hoping to maybe see an elephant or two from up here, but I didn't see any. Brian, this could go horribly wrong. What did she tell me? Apparently my mother gave me some advice about climbing trees that Brian is telling me about, but I can't remember my mother ever giving me advice about such things. Other than don't climb them, of course. You see how elegantly I did that, Brian? Do I look very graceful indeed? Like a cat, agile like a cat, he says, everybody. I'll just try and show you some of the latex that grows in the tree. There we go, infamous tree climber, my left foot, Jamie Patterson. Now, it doesn't have obvious latex like the tambuti, but if I break it in the middle there... No, not particularly impressive. Alright, now it seems that Jamie has not had to leave the leopard yet, so that's good news. Let's go back to Karula the Queen. We're going to head into the setting sun.
We're watching the Queen Now we will be leaving in just a few moments. We're just waiting for Andrew to get here. There's one very upset Franklin somewhere, but it's not in any way connected to Karula. She's spotted something on the other side of the termite mound, so she's repositioned and turned herself around and is staring off towards the direction of the dam. Now, whilst Treehouse is completely dry, every now and again the elephants come through and they actually dig up whatever water they can find. Sorry, that Franklin just came zooming in. It's terribly cross. Not sure what that was all about or where it went. Hidden behind a tree. But yes, there's a lot of animals that do come through to Treehouse Dam in the hope of finding water. It could be anything that she has spotted from her increased height on the termite mound. Absolutely stunning view that we have of the Queen of Djuma, or at least the back of the Queen of Djuma's head. In a moment what we'll do is we'll go and do a little bit of a loop. Since we do have to leave, we'll go and do a bit of a loop around Treehouse Dam, see if her cubs are anywhere to be seen or what she might be hunting. We've spoken before about Karula's age and how well she's done as a successful mother. Madeline, you were wondering about how you might go about guessing a leopard's age. And of course the records for our leopards are relatively well kept. They've been monitored pretty much since birth. So it's easy enough to know exactly how old they are. And in the case of her new set of cubs, we know their exact birth date, which is quite phenomenal. But Madeline, let's say you are presented with a leopard that you don't know how old they are. And it depends on if it's a male or a female in terms of size, because of course males continue to grow throughout their lives. Oh, and we're off. The queen is off. The queen is gone. Let us follow the queen. I have to put my microphone back in my head first. Not in my head, obviously, in my hat. Hi, guys. She's just popped over the top. You got her. Alright, let's try and keep up with her so that when Andrew comes he doesn't have a... Cub's not here. Not that we know of. Sorry guys, trying to juggle several balls in the air. Let me make some space. There we go. So guessing the age of a leopard, a male continues to grow throughout its life, especially its neck, the area around its neck. So you've seen how enormous Tingana is. Watch out, Kirsty. Sorry. It'd be horrible if I whipped you in the face on your birthday. A big dewlap like that, you can immediately guess that the animal is entering into its prime at around 7 to 9 years old. The best way of judging a cat's age, this applies to lions as well as leopards, is to have a look at their teeth. The condition of their teeth is usually quite a good giveaway in terms of their age. Okay guys, we just need to concentrate slightly. I'm going to try find her again. Just keep our eyes peeled. Is she somewhere here? And what did she spot? I'm going to do this quite carefully in case she was trying to hunt something. I don't want to interrupt anything like that. Oh, it's a vehicle. It's amazing how quickly a leopard's camouflage works to hide them away. Got her. I've got her, Andrew, just north of the drainage. Sorry, guys. Managed to catch up with her. us see if she's showing any signs of hunting. We haven't had to leave at the moment because the Henry pulled out before we did, so we've still got space in the sighting, so we can spend a little bit longer with the Queen of Tumor. I'm hoping she might lead us in the direction of her cubs. I think she's hunting though. I don't know what she's heard or she's seen. Going back to the question as to how far they can see, I can't see anything, but of course my senses are positively ridiculous when compared to any of the animals out here. And Kathy in Tennessee, we've spoke about how long she will hide her cubs away while she goes off hunting. And you were wondering, in terms of their learning and their growth, will they learn to hunt by watching their mother, or is it instinctive? And the answer is, it is instinctive. Let's just see where she goes. Oh, she's going to go up the other side of the drainage, I think, before I reposition. Gets a bit tricky here. Kathy, sorry, there she goes. She ducked through. VM, of course, doing a fantastic job of keeping track of her. And there she settled down once again on the opposite side of the drainage line. So Kathy, since she stopped, it gives us an opportunity to answer your question. It is instinctive. They start practicing the skills that they need at a very young age. Occasionally, a female will actually bring back a live animal rather than killing it and allow her cubs to practice their killing technique. It's more common in cheetah than it is in leopard and lion, but it does occasionally happen. Hello, girl. Hidden behind the trees. I love shots like this because it gives us such a wonderful impression of their camouflage. Okay, I'm going to go forward, move out of people's way. And let Andrew come in because his guests haven't seen it and seen her. And she's only just managed to get here. Andrew, come forward to where I am if there's a clear view. Never mind, she's up again. Oh boy. Okay guys, we can't follow her through here, I don't think. Let's try. Rusty's done worse things in her time. Let's go and at least investigate. Otherwise, the other vehicles will never stand a chance. I think we can do this. I've just got to try and dodge the stump. I'm going to try. I'll see you on the other side. Oh! That's going to hit Kirsten squarely on the leg, which we don't want to do on her birthday. Rusty, go into reverse, you horrible thing. Thank you. Okay, everybody hold on. And up the other side while we search for her. Over to James for an update. Me and my bright ideas.
An update it is, everybody here. We found a Dicrostachys cinerea bush which is not particularly interesting, but for the fact that it has very long spikes. Now when you are following a leopard like Karula off-road, this is what you have to watch out for, because they will stick into your tyres and result in your having to change a tyre en route, and that's not very nice. The other thing I would like to show you, everybody, is how incredibly stoic we are about being out here at the moment. You know, Brian, when your skin is so dry that you can scratch on the word dry. Observe, Brian. Look how dry my skin is. Do you see how selfless I am?
Look how injured your knuckle is.
I know. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, everybody, that is that is from the fact that we're experiencing a cold front, and the cold front has desiccated the landscape. Now, we're going up towards a torchwood or greenthorn tree. In fact, there are 3 of them in a row. The one that Brent Leo Smith plummeted from the boughs of is over there, and how I can be compared with that spectacular fall after my little bloops the other day, well, it hurts me deeply to the core of my being. And there are another 2 over here. And Herbie was just telling me that he reckons they've got a fluted stem. So if you come up and look at this one here, its stem is fluted, and that means that it's got these sort of gaps in it. I'll show you now when we get up to it, because it is a defensive mechanism against elephants, and it makes it difficult for them to get at the bark. And I think that's quite interesting. So if you look here, I initially thought that can't be right, that really can't be true, but if you look here, down this fluted part of the stem here, what it means is that the elephants can get at the bark on the outside. That doesn't harm the tree. That's not going to be an issue for the tree. Inside though, and this has almost certainly been taken out by an elephant's tusk. An elephant puts its tusk in here. It cannot get any purchase on the bark unless it breaks the tree in half entirely. And it's not going to be able to do that because, I mean, as powerful as an elephant is, to snap this thing vertically would be almost impossible. And what that means is that there is always going to be a bark layer going from the roots up to the top of the tree. And as long as there's a little bit of bark going to the top of the leaves, the nutrients from the leaves can come down to the roots, and the nutrients from the roots can go up to the leaves, and the tree will survive. And I didn't think that there was any good reason to have a fluted stem until Herbert, on the 3rd of July 2016, told me otherwise. Let's go and look at the other one. I'm sore tempted now to climb it because, of course, Leo Smith fell out of it. Oh, look at this. This, if I'm not beastly mistaken, is a civet tree. Now, what is it? Herbie, I'm just going to ask Herbert to come and help here because I don't want to tell you nonsense. I don't think this is a civet, actually. I'm not sure what's made this dung. I wonder if it's not an artifact. No, it's got scorpion in it. Herb, what made this? Badger. Phew, I got it right just in time. It's Herbert confirms it is a honey badger that made this, and if you look carefully at it, you can see what he's been eating. He's been eating scorpions. There's a bit of scorpion there. In fact, there's a lot of scorpion here. In fact, it's almost entirely scorpion. The badgers here are devouring scorpions by the dozen. Let's just get a bit more out of there. I don't want to touch it with my hand. It's a carnivore's dung, and a carnivore's dung ain't so lekker, ain't so fly. Let's just see what else is in there. Yeah, it's almost exclusively scorpion exoskeleton, everyone. Now, this is interesting because an invertebrate's exoskeleton is normally made of something called chitin. And chitin, much like keratin, which is what your hair and your nails and rhino horn is made of, is utterly indigestible to just about every single organism out here. And the honey badger is no different. So, the honey badger is unable to eat the chitin, but what happens is that somehow the stomach juices in the honey badger devour the flesh inside. It's a bit like eating a crab. You know how if you eat a crab, there's very little actual flesh on the animal to eat. Well, it's the same with a scorpion, except with us, we can't eat the crab chitin and then sort of deliver it in these very cleverly packaged sausages. we are unable to do that. So around here, the honey badger has dug. And what he's done is he's obviously found an area where there are lots of scorpions. He's much better at finding scorpions than I am. And he's dug holes here and pulled them out. And he's much bigger than that. He wouldn't be in there. That's really very cool indeed. I've seen lots of honey badger excavations around this area. And because the soil is quite sandy, I suspect that the honey badgers frequent this area. Bad luck, Brian. Frequent this area and dig up the scorpions. Here's another one. It's quite fun. Here we go. Yes, this was definitely dug by a badger. Voracious diggers they are. Probably dig faster than you can dig with a spade, which I think is quite impressive. Right, come and have a look at this enormous Balanites tree here. Now we have seen this tree very often on drive, because it is such a spectacular example of the green thorn, or Balanites magami. Isn't it lovely? And here you can see the fluted stem again, that the elephants are unable to get at. You should be a little careful when climbing these things, of course, just in case there is a snaky sitting up here. There is a bit of a cache up here that has been placed here by squirrels. So squirrels have put nuts here, and this one is out. This is a marula nut. It's not from the Balanites tree. You can see it looks like a little alien head. Don't you think, Brian? And the flesh of the nut is inside there. And it's delicious if you can get it out, but it's almost impossible to get out. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Leo Smith fell from just up here. And I can see why, because it's quite slippy up here, I've got to tell you. Hopefully I won't do the same. Here's a fresh Balanites fruit, and in theory this fruit has got oil in it. And now I have broken these apart and tried to light them and embarrassed myself any number of times. Right, here we go. Here we go a bit further, Brian. Do you think it's a bad idea? You think it's not a good idea? I think I'm going to have to. Whoop. Whoop, 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 whoop. We're okay so far. There we are. Okay. Yes, indeed. This is if you haven't seen the clip of Brent falling out of this tree, and I don't blame him in the slightest, it's not an easy tree to climb, but he sat up here, and I don't know what he thought he was doing. I think he got quite excited about we were doing a rehearsal, you see, and he started coming down, and he realized that he was now to the place of no return, and he couldn't hold himself because it's quite a slippy tree, and he plummeted all the way down there. That's a very big fall. Anyway, enough of that. He can tell you about it the next time he's here. So this is the Balanites tree, the Balanites magami, or the torchwood, and you can see, I think, possibly the most beautiful tree here at Djuma. I'm now going to try and climb out of it. Brian, do you think I'll manage? I hope so. You know what my daddy always told me, Brian? He said to me, never climb down something frontwards. And that is those words are words I live by. You know, one must always come backwards down something one has climbed. Don't run with scissors, exactly. That's exactly what he used to tell me, Brian. Do not run with scissors. For if you run with scissors, you might fall over and stab yourself. Not so, Brian. Exactly. What a disaster that would be. All right. Let's go across to Jamie and get an update from her.
Somehow I imagine that descent was carried out with great care at this point. James certainly doesn't want to fall out of a tree once again. I'm sure he got stuck in a leadwood sometime many months ago, last year sometime. I know there were some incredible photoshopped images of trees full of Jameses to keep us all entertained. Right, clearly we're not with Karula anymore. She's very much on the move. She's hunting through very dense vegetation, and I just decided that it wasn't worth accidentally damaging her chances of a successful hunt or interfering in some way. So I've left her alone. She's got 3 hungry mouths to feed, herself and 2 little ones, and I really would hate to be responsible for upsetting the balance of things. So we've left her for now. She was moving west. She crossed over Shabam Road, and she's clearly on the search for something else to feed her little ones with. And we'll do a little bit of a scan maybe a bit later, and I think we'll be following up tomorrow on the sunrise safari. So for now, we are going to try a different tack. We're going to head back to that lioness. Hopefully she's still there. It's quite cool this afternoon, as I mentioned earlier, so there is a chance that she's moved away from where she was, but I'm going to go relatively quickly back in that direction. Now, as it starts to get dark, if she does get up and move, I'm not going to follow her into dense vegetation. What I'd like to do, however, is to get an idea as to where she might be hiding those cubs from us. Or not from us, sorry, but from the entire world. Where she might be denning them. And it just gives us a nice idea. First of all, it means that we won't accidentally stumble into them on bushwalk or something similar. And it gives us a nice idea where to keep checking if she does decide to bring them out. That's the plan, I think, for the rest of the sunset safari. It's a difficult choice to have to make, because on the one hand there's that lioness, on the other there's the lioness munching on what's left of the buffalo, and I think she's going to be faced with hyenas soon. It's difficult to decide exactly where it is we're going to go. An impala and her young female offspring running close behind. Beautiful. They're such incredibly graceful antelope. And speaking of grace, I'm being terribly rude about James's tree climbing skills, and I really don't have any right to be, because I've fallen out of more trees than I can possibly count in my time. So he is not alone. And Brent certainly managed it spectacularly at one point as well. I'm going to leave our impala. I do want to get back to that lioness before she moves off. Nobody's been with her, which means that she might not even be there when we get there, which I'm hoping is not the case. And hello to Sandra, and welcome on our sunset safari. You're wondering about our lionesses, who are in a little bit of a state of, I wouldn't call it disrepair, but they're certainly in a rather scattered situation at the moment. So you were saying that, there's a leaf in my lap, you were saying that these females seem to enjoy being on their own. Do they belong to a particular pride? Yes, they absolutely do. They're all part of the same pride, known as the Nkuhuma, or brown ivory pride, and that's named after a tree that occurs on the Sabi sands. Definitely one of the most beautiful of all of the trees. There's 5 of them at the moment, plus a couple of new members. We actually didn't get around to speaking about how many cubs that young female has. Apparently she has 3 new babies, and there are most definitely reinforcements on the way, and lioness feeding on the buffalo. So Sandra, I don't quite know why they're so scattered. I think it's a combination of the fact that there's a couple of estrus cycles. Amber Eyes has been in estrus. She was mating with a male lion this morning. And then the pregnancies and the cubs that they have had has kind of resulted in James called it an explosion of lionesses. I'm not sure I would go that far, but they are very, very scattered. But there's usually 5 of them, soon to be more. And as I said at the start of the drive, I'm really looking forward to the moment where all 5 Nkuhumas are reunited, plus their little cubs wandering along behind. And it will kind of be a beautiful, not end, but a sort of the end of a chapter of their lives that were thrown into chaos around this time last year. Now, this time last year there were 8 Nkuhumas, and apparently just before that there were 9, but when I started working here there were 8. There were 7 females. Well, there were 5 adult females, 2 sub-adult females, and 1 sub-adult male. And with the takeover that occurred, they used to be controlled, if you could use that term. They were the dominant male lions in this area were known as the Matimba males. There were only 2 of them, and they were pushed out by an incursion of 5 males known as the Birmingham Boys. And as always happens with a pride takeover, or a territory takeover is probably a better way of describing it, the young cubs were killed. 1 female from the Nkuhuma pride was killed in relatively mysterious circumstances, but almost certainly by the Birmingham Boys, who were young, full of testosterone, and a little bit aggressive, and I think things just went south, either over food or while they were trying to protect their sub-adult cubs. 1 young sub-adult female, the sister of the youngest member of the Nkuhuma pride, was killed. Junior, the young male, made it out in one piece, and he seems to be absolutely fine. While we make our way, it seems to have been a day full of cats on termite mounds, and it only stands to reason that now we have a large primate on one.
I am so pleased that I have graduated from tree faller to large primate. No one has ever called me large before. Thank you, Jamie. Now, on this termite mound, we have a tree called Ozeroa spherocarpa, or the common resin tree. And it's not a particularly attractive tree. It's not particularly spectacular in any way, except for the fact that it has a very interesting medicinal use, as explained to me by Herberto just now. If you should happen to break your leg out here, which I hope that if you do come out here you don't do, but should you happen to break your leg by mistake, what you do is you reset the bone, obviously without anesthetic, and that will hurt a great deal. You might cry, I certainly would. And then you take 2 sticks and you place them either side of the broken bone, and that's your splint. And then in order to aid the healing, you dig this tree out, you break the roots, and you burn them up, and then you crush them into a powder. And then you make very fine incisions around where the bone has broken. And into those fine incisions you rub the ash and the powder, and that apparently will help your broken bone to mend. I personally think that I would die of pain long before I was able to dig out a piece of this root, but if you are perhaps a little braver than I and you find yourself out here one day with such trouble, just have a look at the leaf quickly, identify it so that it's in your memory banks, and should your leg break when you're out here, you can fix it forthwith. This is Ozeroa spherocarpa, the common resin tree. Would you manage to do that on your own, Brian?
Probably not.
Yes, I wouldn't. Right, on we go. A large primate. Did you hear that, Brian? I am a large primate. I am large. And there's the sunset, everybody. And that means we're going to start sort of heading towards quarantine clearings now. And then we'll have another sort of half an hour or so left of our little walk. Our Sunday stroll. Very nice, Brian. It's so pretty. Lovely. Right, on we go. Let's head across to Jamie and find out how close to those lions she is.
The answer is we are very close to the lions that we are making an approach to, or at least the one female. And I don't want to go too fast here because I want to just double check that the mating pair is not still somewhere in the vicinity and that we just maybe missed them, whoops, while we were driving along. Beautiful day today. Incredibly clear blue skies. Really, really stunning. Cold though. Still, oh, why are there vultures here now? That's interesting. Relatively unexpected. I think just probably attracted by the presence of that buffalo and coming to settle in the dead trees. Oh, and they apparently don't want to be on camera. They're feeling very camera shy. Well done, Viam. Awesome. Settling down. 2 white-backed vultures. I said that they are on roosting in dead trees, and that's because they prefer dead trees without leaves. They're very big, bulky birds, and they're not particularly agile. Oh, sorry. I'm attempting to subtly put on my coat, but I misjudged that ever so slightly. And that's because trees with leaves mean that they get caught up in them, and they only really settle on trees with leaves when they know that there's a prospect of food. So if they're waiting outside of a kill, I didn't do that very well, but I've managed to put my jacket onto the chair as well as myself. There we go, much warmer. And on the subject of scavengers, George, you've got a wonderful question about whether or not our hyenas ever managed to steal the kill from the lionesses. Not as far as I know, not yet. We went back to check at the start of the sunset safari. Sorry, it is afternoon, the sun is setting. We went back at the sunset safari, and all was well. The pregnant lioness was still feeding. However, she'd been abandoned by the other lioness, and I think that as darkness falls, that kill will become the newly acquired property of the hyena clan of Juma. I don't think she's going to stick around much longer. And to be completely honest, there's not really all that much left, oh dear, of her kill. Oh, drat. Let's just check she's not on the other side of this drainage line. I mean on the termite mound. Where did you go, girl? Not this way, that's for sure. Now, on the subject of our hyenas, while we go and search for this lioness, or at least her tracks to give us a bit of a hint as to where she might have gone, let's go over to James, who's found some evidence of hyena presence.
I think it was a hyena, everybody, but it was something similar. If you look down over here along this piece of grass, you see that it is darkened. Now that is there's no subtle way to say this. That is anal pasting. Now many animals out here, hyenas included, have got a gland underneath the anus, and it's used to mark territory, and it produces a fairly evil smelling black gum like this. And what they do is they walk over the top of it. So if you can imagine, once Brian has zoomed out a little bit, if you can imagine an animal walking along like this, in these its legs, it walks over the top of it like that, and then the anal pasting takes place on the end of the branch. I've smelt this one. This one doesn't smell bad. I don't think it's very new, but I also think it was made by a civet. I'm pretty sure that a civet walked along this road at some stage during the last, I don't know, it probably comes along quite regularly. And that's a territorial anal pasting. Okay, now the sun is beginning to set, so we're going to head sort of back towards the home, but just quickly have a look over here. One can get oneself rather into trouble around here because you keep finding things as the sun's gone down. Many of you have asked about bushfires and do we get them here and are we afraid of them. Here is a piece of tree that has broken, and this tells a long story, and the long story goes as follows. The trees out here are adapted for fire, and you can see here many people say, well, why don't you just burn an area if you think that it's too thick with trees? The trees here don't die when you burn them. You can see this tree, all it did is it coppiced. So it started growing from the base. I bet the whole top ground portion of the tree was killed, and then it just settled up other shoots, and they've quickly grown up into this silver cluster leaf like it is. Now, many people, especially as a function of the drought, are wondering, is there a likelihood of fire coming up? And the answer is no. because if you look around you here, you can see that there's almost no grass at all. And the grass that there is very short, and most of it's been eaten away already. That is what burns in an area like this. These trees, unless you have a massively hot fire, they don't burn. And that massively hot fire, of course, can only be brought on if there's an enormous amount of grass in the fuel load. Without that, there can be no bushfires here. So we're in a pretty fire-free season this year. It may get very hot in August and September. It may get so unspeakably hot that in a normal year it would create a fire. But this year, any fire that comes through here is going to be able to be put out with a couple of stompings. Now, let's just compare this tree here with the tree that we looked at earlier, the Balanites Magami. You can see a marula has also got a few strategies to stop the elephants having too much of a go at it. You can see a very large elephant rubbed his skin against there. Now that's the height of an elephant's shoulder. That's a massive bull elephant has rubbed his shoulders up there. Now I'm not a large man. Brian is a very large man. And Brian, you are what? You're probably almost a stick shorter than this as well. So that, I'm 5'8". My hand is probably another foot above, 6'8" there, plus another 1.5 feet there. So you can see how absolutely enormous an elephant is. Almost, probably, what's that, about 9 feet, which I think is quite impressive. So quickly over here, this is where the elephant has taken off the bark, and marula bark comes off in small sections, and so it becomes quite difficult for the elephants to strip them, unlike the knobthorn tree. Jamie Patterson, my colleague and great naturalist, has found not one, Brian, not even 2, but 3 lionesses.
There you go. Sorry guys, I was just being quiet there so that you could listen to the sounds of our mating pair. There you go, that typical response of a female that has just finished mating, rolling over onto her back. And there's some thoughts that allows for additional help in fertilization. So we haven't lost our lions at all. We've got the mating pair and we've got the female that we were with earlier. Copy that, thanks very much, Andrew. And I don't think there's any question that this female is amber-eyed. Content with those bright orange eyes of hers. Oh, fly. Definitely wasn't welcome. Playing a little bit cutesy after a Sunday spent consorting with her male companion. Of course, we're fortunate enough to be able to witness this. Lion mating goes on for about 5 days, usually about roughly every 20, maybe 15 to 20 minutes during that time period. So by the time the pair separates, they are absolutely exhausted and almost invariably really very hungry. Here's our second lioness. She's over there. She moved out of the way as soon as the mating started, which is a very wise thing to do. A male that is mating with a female or courting a female tends to be incredibly protective and possessive of her, even when it comes to other females. So our new mom, well, I'm relatively certain our new mom, has moved off and away to a slightly safer spot. Awesome, what an incredible Sunday afternoon this has been. And there's the male. That's Blondie, isn't it? Looks like it's Blondie, the oldest of the Birmingham boys. And now he's really acquired that full head of mane. Definitely not nearly as flawless as they were when they first arrived, bearing the scars of many fights. Oh, she's gonna mate again. He's interested. I think she just wants to go say hello to her other pride mate. Interesting. That's very interesting. Let's see if she phlegm and grimaces. Yes. How fascinating is that? So those hormones still playing a very interesting role. Look how interested Amber Eyes is in sniffing the other female and giving us a perfect grimace. The lips curled upwards. She's not snarling. Oh, now she is. Amber Eyes was not snarling or showing aggression there. She's showing interest in the smells that are coming from the other female. Obviously the hormone levels still high in the lactating female, and that's what attracted Amber Eyes' interest. You've got an interesting clash of hormones there. The pregnancy or the post-pregnancy hormones and lactation hormones, and then the Amber Eyes' estrus hormones. And one male in the middle of it all. Gave his territory a quick mark. And now he's going to try and find a spot to settle down. I'm going to take up the best possible spot and block everybody's view and then present you with the view of the back of my head. The only truly social big cat. One of the most extraordinary aspects of nature. And a really nice opportunity, even though the view isn't all that clear, to just see the comparison in size between the head of a female and the head of a male. Although he's got to pick up his head to help us out with that. I can also hear in the distance a Varro's eagle owl calling away. It's one of my favorite calls. It's a very deep toot, 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 toot. We might go and look for them later, depending on what happens with these lions. Okay, right, how are we going to reposition for this now? He's thrown a spanner in the works. Okay, there we go. We have an answer, sorry, on a slightly different subject of different lions. We have a different answer for George, who asked about whether or not the hyenas have stolen the carcass. Yes, they have. Or the lioness has left and abandoned it to them, but the hyenas have all joined in at that carcass, and they're all there now. As to where she's gone, she's probably on her way back here. Keep an eye on the Djuma Dam camera at the same time, because she could well come through there. She's either going to go there, or she's going to go to Galago Pan to go and have a drink. She might go to Arathusa and have a drink at Red Dam. It's all a little bit of a toss-up at the moment. But she'll go wherever that second lioness went. I'm not sure how long Amber Eyes has been mating with this male. I don't think they've yet reached the end yet of her estrus cycle, just judging by their behavior. She's still showing enthusiasm, I suppose, if we could call it that. She's rolling over onto her back. By the time a lioness reaches the end of her estrus cycle, both partners are, I suppose I'd describe it as a little bit world-weary, essentially. Now, Rob, good afternoon to you. You wanted to know how long an estrus cycle lasts for a female. Roughly around 5 days, up to 7. There's usually at least a day's courting period where she's not in full estrus, but the male lion knows that she's coming into estrus, and he'll spend a lot of time accompanying her, often resting his chin on the back of the lower part of her back, just making sure that he has staked his claim for when she is in estrus. And then after that they will start mating. And as I said, once every 15 or so minutes for 5 days. You do the maths. I think I've done it before. It equates to somewhere close to 500 mating sessions during one estrus cycle. It's an interesting thing about lions. It's called induced ovulation. Okay, let's try. Trying to think. I think we might be able to get around there. Find ourselves a slightly nicer spot. How's that for you, Vian? A little bit better. You can at least see their faces. Although they've done what lions do best, which is go straight back to sleep. And we just have to wait a little while longer, and then she'll probably get up to mate with him once again. I definitely have a soft spot for the Nkuhuma Pride. I think it's just because we've watched all of the drama that has surrounded the territorial takeover, and we've watched the way in which they have survived. Look at that. Is that a scar? It does look like one. A healed up injury. It's amazing how resilient these creatures are. Cuts that would lay us low with infection and pain barely seem to register with them, and they heal up almost straight away. Our lions aren't going to be up to too much for now. Let's head over to James before he has to head home in the darkness.
And home from the darkness we must be before the darkness falls, otherwise we could fall prey to something out here. Look over here, everybody. Many of you would have seen buffalo, well, of course you've seen buffalo, but you would have seen buffalo with that red kind of tinge to the top of their horns. You also may well have seen some impala hitting trees during the course of the rut. And this is what they're hitting. It's an acacia tree, and acacia trees were used to tan leather. And you can see why they were used to tan leather, because there's a very, very kind of, deep red, tan-coloured substance inside. I've forgotten what it's called. Tannin. There we go. It's called tannin inside the bark, and it's used to tan leather, which I think is quite amazing. Right, the lions are still mobile. We're going to go down towards that area there, and I'll say goodbye to you on quarantine, but go and have a look at the mobile lions.
That was really fascinating. Oh, big yawn. Look at this. Watch Amber Eyes' behavior. Oh, it's not Amber Eyes' behavior. It's the pregnant female. She just mounted Amber Eyes. It just goes to show what havoc their hormones are playing between the two of them. No, it was Amber Eyes that mounted the new mother, the lactating female. I think she needs a name at this point because I'm confusing myself. Oh, and we've got some phlegm and grimacing. Ah, come on, boy, do it one more time for us. Thank you. Hope you're getting some awesome screenshots of that fearsome expression. You might get lucky. He's going to do it again for you. One more time. Yes. How cool is that? A phlegm and grimace, essentially opening up the area to the vomeral nasal organ, more easily known as the organ of Jacobson, and that essentially allows him to an extra level of refinement in terms of tasting smells almost. So he went and sniffed where the females urinated and then phlegm and grimaced in response. But what was most fascinating, because it's the first time I've seen that in this kind of situation, I've never seen an estrus female and a new mother in the same sighting with a male present. And it's very interesting what that sort of behavior that they just demonstrated. Absolutely fascinating. In fact, I've heard of it happening, but that might even have been the first time I've ever seen a female mount another female with lionesses. Really, really interesting. Hello, Amber Eyes. Things are all a bit confusing at the moment. And yes, absolutely, Paula, you're thinking along the same line I am, and that is that Amber Eyes was mating with one of the Birmingham boys not too long ago. It was probably about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. It was around Buffelshoek Dam. Sure, Paula, it sort of blurs a little bit into one, trying to remember exactly when they all mated, but you're right. There was a sighting with James, and there was Amber Eyes was mating with one of the males. Okay, now that they've decided to settle, playing camera shy once again behind the log, we'll reposition a little bit so that we can pop some light on, shed some light, quite literally, on the situation, and also get a view of the male. This is such an interesting sighting because, okay, that might be as good as it gets, I think, because the female and the left of your screens, the sleeping one, I think she wanted a little bit of company, as lions instinctively do as social cats, but I also think now she'd actually quite like to move away from the mating pair. And Amber Eyes showing every intention of following her, and then of course the male is not going to be letting Amber Eyes out of his sight for now. We've got an interesting little dynamic playing out in front of us. So what is that? We've accounted for 4 out of the 5 Nkuhuma lionesses in the last 24 hours. 2 on the buffalo kill, and 2 here, not more than about 1.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers away, a mile away. Here's our male playing hide and seek behind the log. Sorry guys, just need to let Andrew know he can come and join us. Standing by, Andrew. It's just myself, space for 2, so you're more than welcome to come and join me. Copy. She's so restless, as estrus females often are. And they're also all looking a little bit hungry. Here we go, she's gonna mate again. Oh, where is she? He's certainly hopeful. Oh no, I'm sorry, buddy. Your affections have been surpassed. Interesting. I mean, this is pure hormonal confusion that's happening here. What he must think of the whole situation, I don't think he can be terribly impressed with life. Go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. Oh, whoopsie. mating, and we are in exactly the wrong place. I didn't expect that to happen. Sorry, everybody. That was so unexpected. It happened so quickly, and it went on behind the trees. And we didn't get to view it. How fascinating, though, is this behavior. I don't really know where to go because I think she's going to come straight back to the other female. He's doing some foot scraping after mating. How amazing was that? She ran away from him and then immediately mated, but only after mounting the female first. Definitely some confusion here. Well, since they're going to settle down for now, we're going to stay here in the middle of the two. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to follow the female that's walking away. We'll come back to these two. While we do that, James would like to say farewell to you all.
Goodbye. That would be very rude of me twice in a row. Now, I'm standing on this mound, finding myself deeply amusing, overlooking a very pretty sight of the subtle colours of a winter's sunset. Thank you very much for coming along for the ride today. There's just a bird calling here. You hear it? And I don't know what it is. There it is. Sorry, hold on one sec, everybody. Those lions start doing something, we'll go straight back to them. Everyone, that is really odd. I think they're flycatchers. 3 or 4 flycatchers. That's what they are, dusky flycatchers. In that tree over there. Anyway, I think it's too dark for you to see them. Oh, you got them. Brilliant. Alright everybody, apparently the lions are mobile, so that's our time up. Thank you very much for coming on our walk with us. Big thank you to Herbert. Thank you, Herbert. And a big thank you to Brian. Well done. Good job. Alright, we'll see you tomorrow at 06:30. Until then, enjoy the lions with Jamie.
We find ourselves in a very interesting position here. Amber Eyes wants to follow the female that's walking away, and he doesn't want to let her. And as a result, they're both right next to the vehicle, and it gives us a nice opportunity to observe that Amber Eyes is taller than him. Just a funny little thing that I've just noticed. Can you two not play hide and seek around my vehicle? Behave yourself. This is totally bizarre. Is she hiding there? Yes, she is. She's trying to sneak around using my car, and he won't let her. This is actually the most bizarre position I have ever been in with lions. Okay. Cool. We've lost our other female for now, but there's no way that I can turn on the vehicle just right now because our lions are playing hide and seek around the vehicle. I never thought I'd be embroiled in this really complicated love triangle, but such is life, and nature is never simple. The other lioness is disappearing off into the distance, and Amber Eyes has decided that we are the best possible place to hide. Guys, how cool is this? How privileged are we? I'm keeping my voice down because, as you may be able to tell, they're on top of us, almost quite literally. Now, it's important to remember that as relaxed as our animals are in the Sabi Sands, a mating pair of lions is a slightly unpredictable entity, as we've just seen. Zach and many others, why was she mating with another female? It's hormonal. It often happens. There's lots of cases of homosexual activity in animals. She's confused by her hormones and she's confused by the hormones of the other female. She's in estrus, so her hormones are telling her to mate. The other female has just had a brand new set of cubs in the last, so she's lactating, so her hormone levels are running high, and as a result we have slight confusion. But none of us, I think, are more confused than our poor Birmingham boy, who is definitely not impressed with life. This has got to be one of the coolest mating lion sightings I have ever had. It's utterly fascinating. And it goes to show how comfortable these animals are with our presence. The fact that Amber Eyes tried to use us as a way of ditching him, that's a first for me. She tried one side, then she tried the other side, then she looked at Kirsty in confusion as if to say, help me. Come on, where's the girl code here? And unfortunately he didn't let her. How's this? These are wild lions. For those of you who are new to our live safaris. Utterly incredible. Oh goodness, if we thought it could get any more complicated, I think things are definitely interesting enough. There we go, she's trying again. Oh, she is so unimpressed with him. This is incredible. She definitely tried to sneak away. Oh, shame. She's making distress noises. The sounds are absolutely phenomenal. Wow, it's such an interesting play of instincts here. She's a social cat. She wants to join her pride member. He's a male. He wants her to stay with him and mate with him. She doesn't quite know where she stands because her instincts tell her to mate. Her body tells her to mate, but at the same time she wants company that isn't in the form of a large, somewhat pushy male. Really, really fascinating stuff. It's interesting that the male is not confused by the other female's hormones. He in no way thinks that the other female is in estrus, even though her pregnancy hormones often cause a little bit of confusion with male lions. Now, Casey, you were wondering if he tried to mate with her, would that, if he was trying to mate with the other female, would that cause a conflict between the two females? And no, not really. There's even cases of female leopards mating with the same male leopard, and I mean now you're talking two non-social cats sharing the same male. That does happen where female lions go into estrus at the same time, usually with a coalition like this. They actually separate and they mate in separate places. But he clearly isn't confused, and even if he were, I don't think it would cause major conflict. I'm going to just take the spotlight off them for now. I want to see where that female went. I think she's long since abandoned us. She's given this up as far too complicated and far too confusing for her liking. And off she goes. And he looks thoroughly smug with himself. He's managed to keep her exactly where he wants her. Wow, what an absolutely phenomenal sighting. I've had a hyena try to hide under my car before. That's the first time I've ever had a lioness. No, it's the second time actually. One of them tried to do it last night when hiding from the elephants. And it just goes to show how they view us as safari vehicles. We're such a natural part of their environment, or we've become such a natural part of their environment. We're not actually a natural part of their environment, that they are content to use us in the same way they might use a termite mound or a tree. And of course, there's lots of recorded cases of animals like cheetah using vehicles in the Serengeti as a viewpoint. That's something I don't think we ever want to get to that stage, and I certainly wouldn't have been terribly impressed if one of them had landed on my bonnet. Oh, is bonnet an American? Is that a South Africanism?
Yeah,
The
they
front
say
of the
hood.
car. It's a hood.
Hood.
A hood. Thank you, VM. There we go. Sorry, everybody. It is a South Africanism. A hood. I can't. No, that sounds very strange when I say it. I'm just going to do that. Most of you are familiar with the mating process of lions. And all big cats. It's not a pleasant experience for either party. The male has a barbed penis that hurts the female and the male. Look at his eye. He's got a fresh cut under his eye, and I bet you that was her responding in kind, which is why there's a great deal of growling coming from the mating pair. All of the sounds you were hearing were the male. He was making those high-pitched whining sounds. Jenny, you were wondering as she ran away whether the male would ever hurt the female if she refused to mate with him. Yes, possibly. It's usually the younger and the more inexperienced males that do something like that. When a female refuses them, they get cross, the aggression just takes over, and they occasionally even end up killing them. But that's very unusual. Affirmative, of course you may. The second Mufuzzy is moved north along the cut line. Hello. Such an interesting scenario playing out. I don't want to know what the score of the sports is. Thank you very much. I could do without that in my ear. Sorry, Roger, in Tampa, you were wondering, just talking about animals or lions in distress, whether they have an alarm call that would alert the rest of the pride if they were in trouble. The answer is not per se, not an alarm call as we know it, but the deep rumbling distress growls like the ones that we heard when the lions were chased away by the hyenas, or chased off their kill by the hyenas a couple of weeks ago. That, if there's a lion, especially a male lion, close enough to enter into the scene, then they will go and see if they can't help out in that situation, and the rest of the pride will respond as well. But they have to be close enough to hear it, and in that case I don't think that they were. So Roger, yes, to an extent, but it's not really like the distress call of an elephant, for example, that all of the other elephants will rush forward and respond to. I have seen a situation many years ago. I was down at one of our other camps. It was not here, it was where I used to work. Oh, let's get some nice side lighting from Andrew there. How's that? If I take these off. Oh, he's got to keep his spotlight there though. But yes, I had a situation many years ago where we were driving up from a second camp, and this male lion, I got out of the car in the dark to pick something that had fallen out of the car, to pick up something. Okay, I better provide a bit of extra light. And he came shooting past me, probably about 5 meters away. I can tell you I got something of a fright, but he was clearly focused on something else. And when we got up to the second camp where I was traveling to, apparently the lionesses had come sprinting through, followed by hyenas. And the next thing, the riverbed in front of the camp just erupted in growls and hyena screeches. Because obviously the male had come to the rescue of the females. It's one of the big reasons why they tolerate the big males around. They might not be gentle or caring, but they are fierce protectors of the females if they need to. Oops, sorry. Now, fox hat, you were wondering about. I've got to stop saying that. That's becoming a pattern. It's becoming like Brent so and some of Scott's expressions. I do have to stop it, I know. Kirsty's nodding behind me. I'm going to stop saying you were wondering. Now we're going to think of other things to say. Fox hat has been particularly observant and would like to know... Oh, you see, that's too similar as well. Why are the backs of the lion's ears black? And the answer is because they play a very, very important part in visual communication. So I'm not sure if you have cats at home, but you'll know, or dogs, or horses, or whatever it happens to be. You know how important an animal's ears are in communicating its mood. These animals can't speak to each other in sort of vocal languages, but they certainly speak to each other through visual cues. So the black highlights some of the most important parts. So the tail is tipped in black, and the ears have black behind them. There's now very interesting research that has been conducted to suggest that the black at the tip of the ears is essential because the lionesses use their ears, all the lions, use the ears as a way of communicating during a hunt. So telling the other lions what their intention is, where to go, whether to stay, whether to move, go left, go right, go east, go west, go downwind. Isn't that phenomenal? We've always wondered about the level of coordination that these animals have, because anybody who's ever seen a lion hunt cannot possibly believe that it's purely by accident, that everybody just knows where they're meant to be. It is a highly coordinated affair. And that is why lions have black behind their ears. I like that idea. I don't think it's the case, but I really like the idea that Eleanor has put forward, that perhaps she was attempting to put her scent on the other female so as to confuse the male and buy herself some space. No, Alan, I don't think so, but that's a really, really good theory. It's a very clever thought and one that hadn't occurred to me. The reason I don't think that is the case is because I don't think lions have that level of problem-solving ability, to be 100% honest with you. It's the sort of puzzle, that's the sort of thing I'd even be surprised if certain primates would accomplish. Human beings, of course, would be more than capable of thinking that way. But I'm not sure a lioness thoughts extend to that degree. That was a ridiculous squeak he gave at the end there. Sorry, I just had to be quiet because the matings of the big cats are always such incredibly vocal affairs. A wonderful, wonderful message from Pippa Mullman, who is watching all the way from Munich and has said what a thrill it is to watch from across the world what is happening in her backyard, essentially. And Pippa, I couldn't agree with you more. It must be a most wonderful experience, and I'm so glad that you are watching us this afternoon because it has been extraordinary. If you want to know exactly where we are, we're on Gowrie Cut Line, probably about halfway between the Central Road Junction and Buffelshoek Cut Line. So there you go. Pippa Mullman, of course, is the landowner of Djuma, along with her husband Yuri. Oh, so a sleepy lion. You're exhausted now. It's been a very long day. And what an extraordinary afternoon it has been. The lions using the vehicle, the Queen of Juma. Now, of course, we got those, the discussion about his barbed penis and the fact that she actually needs that stimulation in order to ovulate. One of those interesting aspects of lion reproductive evolution. Robin would like to know why she isn't growling when he pulls out and away from her. She is a little bit. She's creating the low rumbling sounds that we're hearing. He's making the more high-pitched whining sounds. And I think it's just because they have been mating for a little while. So it's almost like she's got used to it. It tends to be more violent with leopards. Leopards are more violent than lions during their mating process. I think that's one of the big reasons why she's no longer being as vocal, or indeed turning around and swatting him, as lionesses do right at the start of their estrus cycle. She's just kind of getting used to the idea. I'm relatively certain, though, that she is responsible for the cut that is underneath his right eye. Fresh cut. It's still painful for her. It's still not a pleasant experience. One of those strange little idiosyncrasies of biology. And basically, the idea is she's got to mate with him for a long time before it'll result in fertilization, just in case somebody bigger and better comes along. So, it's kind of like an extended courtship period. It's also painful for him, by the way, on withdrawal. The barbs on his penis get caught, so it's not comfortable for him either. But it really is a truly bizarre system that nature has come up with. They look relatively content, though. Now, Heidi, while our lion looks relatively happy with himself, we saw how when they were mating, the lioness almost immediately rolled over onto her back, and you were wanting to know if there's a purpose behind that. It's sort of an extension of what's known as the lordosis reflex. So a lordosis reflex is what tells the female to assume the mating position and then dictates her behavior afterwards. And you'll find, particularly sort of at the beginning and the middle of their estrus cycle, she rolls over. There is some thought that it's basically a physical way that she's attempting to ensure fertilization. So quite simply trying to make gravity work for her rather than standing up or rolling onto her stomach, essentially to keep the sperm inside for as long as possible. That's a theory. It's the only real explanation that has been offered for that behavior. Oh, look at them now. If we hadn't seen their earlier behavior, they just look so at peace with each other. Isn't that stunning? Wow. I bet some of you are getting some amazing screenshots. But it's why I always have a chuckle when I see those sweet Valentine's Day cards of a picture of a female lion and a male lion looking cute like that together. And there's always the cynical part of me that knows exactly what goes on behind the scenes in the lion mating world. However, the day didn't quite go according to plan. I was hoping we might go and follow that lioness with the fresh suckle marks. But tomorrow is another day, and we can follow up and see if we can't figure out where she went on the sunrise safari. Cheers, Andrew. Bye, guys. And hello to Sabrina, who is 12 years old and one of our regular viewers. It's great to have you on board. You want to know if it's true that lionesses feed their cubs milk for longer than leopards do, and if so, why? It is true. It's not that much longer, Sabrina. It can be just a month or two, maybe up to 3 months longer than the leopard feeds their cubs for. But the reason is because lions are social cats, so whilst the leopard is solitary, she's got to feed herself. She can't quite meet the demands for milk in the same way, but still have to hunt and feed her cubs. So it's just easier from a solitary lifestyle to have them weaned as soon as possible. Lions, on the other hand, social predators, social cats. She's got a pride that will share food with her, and she's also got the possibility of other pride members suckling her cubs as well. So she doesn't bear quite the same brunt of resources on her body. Well, that's why they have a slightly long lactation period. But Sabrina, give some thought to what I've just said, and then think about spotted hyenas and the fact that they can lactate for up to 1.5 years, feed their babies milk for 1.5 years, and see if you can think of why that might be. I think it's because of the clan hierarchy, because it differs between high-ranking individuals, and of course only the high-ranking individuals can bring meat back to the den site. The low-ranking females have to take their cubs there, but the low-ranking females don't get as much access to food, so they can't produce milk for as long. But it's still much, much longer than the lions or the leopards. It's up to you to think about why you think that may be. I think it's because of the testosterone and the fact that the females are so big, but there's no set answer. It's just a nice, interesting comparison. This microphone is attempting to dig its way through my forehead and into my brain. Hold on one moment, I just need to reposition it. Sorry for the noise. I agree with Jeffrey in Texas. I think that is a brilliant description, and I will never be able to unsee it. Jeffrey in Texas has described has described watching leopard mating like watching a kung fu action film. I know exactly what he means, those sort of side swipes and chops and kicks that they throw at each other. The female leopard turns around and swipes at the male, aiming for his belly with her back legs. I don't know how many of you have domestic cats at home that occasionally get tempted to fight you. Not fight you, but play fight with you, and they bite you, and then my cat at home, what she'd do is she'd grab my hand, and then she'd kick very rapidly with her back legs, with her claws extended. Not pleasant for me, but that's exactly what the female leopard does to the male when he dismounts. My hand's getting quite warm. Here we have a lovely moth. A lovely unidentified moth. I have absolutely no idea what it may be. Those of you who are moth experts, who have helped me out with IDing moths before, perhaps you know what particular moth this is. Terribly pretty though, and him doing an amazing job of showing us its wings. How cool is that? No, don't come to the light, don't come to the light. That's not the moon, I promise. Oh. I am camouflaged. You can't see me anymore. A flopped moth. That was really cool. Oh, I thought I saw movement from the lions, but it was my total imagination. They're doing their best flopped moth impression. It's interesting that she keeps trying to get away from him. I think she really wanted a little bit of company that is not with a big mane around its head and one intention on its mind. But either way, we have witnessed some absolutely incredible behavior this evening on our sunset safari. Watching a female not attempt to mate with, but definitely mount and go through the motions of mating with another female is really interesting. It just goes to show that it's not just the males, because often we watch the male impala go through that false rut when the females give birth. And it goes to show that it's not just the males of a species that are affected by those post-pregnancy hormones and those lactation hormones that guide their behavior. What was fascinating was his lack of interest in her, and maybe it's just because he is overwhelmed by the presence of a genuine estrus, and that moth actually went down my top somewhere. There's some flapping happening. I don't know entirely where it went. No, I know exactly where it went. I shall attempt to rescue it in a moment. We're going to look back at the lions. Oh, be gone. She's going to get up again. Come on, guys. One more time before the end of the sunset safari. Yep. Thank you very much. Right. Oh, she didn't even roll over that time. She's up, she's done. So the low growling was her. The high-pitched whining sounds that I must say are the most exaggerated I have ever heard of from any lion. Those were from the male. A truly awe-inspiring sound, mister. Big yawn from her. And off our... no, not off our lions go. They've just found themselves another spot to lie in. Unfortunately, it's straight in front of our porcupine quill themed antenna, so we'll just reposition ever so slightly for the last few moments. Here we go. Well, as we come to the end of our sunset safari, we'll have to follow up on that female at a later stage. We just had too many things to choose from this afternoon. I would have loved to have taken you to the hyenas feeding off the carcass, but we just couldn't get there. We just kept getting distracted by all of the animals. I think that Kirsty had an amazing birthday drive. I think the animals came out to play for Kirsty's birthday. Kirsty, is that the closest you've had a lion?
Yeah.
That was definitely the closest that Kirsty has ever had a wild lion next to her. I'm thrilled that we could give her this fantastic birthday experience and that we could take you all along for the ride as well. Been a beautiful day. The weather is slowly improving after the windy, chilly, freezing cold days we've been experiencing, which is also guaranteed to up our mood. Thank you, Viam, for your fantastic camera work. Thank you to Lou and Chelsea in Final Control. Most importantly, thank you to all of you for joining us and for your questions and comments. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.